Greetings, everyone. My name is Lieutenant Commander Nuri Tawwab. I'm happy to speak to you today about my experience as a process manager for OPQ. Just a little background information about me. I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. I went to pharmacy school in Virginia at Hampton University. Then after I got my master's in public health from Emory University, and my concentration was prevention science. So just information about my career in government. Upon graduation, I worked at the Indian Health Service in Arizona as a senior co-step. After my 2-year commitment at the Indian Health Service, I went on to work at the Food and Drug Administration in the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality. As one of the many offices in CEDAR, the mission is to assure the quality of medicines for the country. So in regulatory terms, we say quality. We are talking about the foundations that allow patients and consumers to have confidence in the safety and effectiveness of their medication. This includes supporting a program across all sites of manufacturing, domestic or foreign, across all human drug product areas, including new drugs, biologics, generics, and over-the-counter. In OPQ, we follow a team-based integral assessment quality model with the RBPMs managing the approval process from the quality aspect, and that's what I'll be speaking about. So as a process manager in OPQ, our main job is to be the point of contact for sending and receiving communication between the FDA and drug firms. I will explain this in detail later, but the communication. I will explain later in detail, but the communication would be what is called information request letters. These are letters I send out to the firm and that a specific drug discipline assessor contributes to, which includes questions they may come across that need to be answered before they continue their review. For clarification today, when I say assessors, I'm speaking about drug reviewers. So in addition to information request process, managers also send DRL letters, which you're aware of. These are letters that all disciplines must contribute to halfway through their review cycle. It gives the firms an update on where we are in the review application. In addition to communicating with external stakeholders like drug firms, I'm also managing a life cycle of applications in our integrated quality assessment model, or IQA. IQA teams consist of an ATL, an RBPM, our discipline assessors, and additional technical advisors as needed. And the review disciplines may include drug substance, drug product, facility, microbiology, biopharmaceutics, and the RA investigators. As stated before, GDUFA, or the Generic Drug User Fee Amendment, is a law signed to speed up the delivery of safe and effective drugs to the public, improving the predictability of the review process. It was built on the assumption that FDA would receive about 750 abbreviated new drug applications, or ANDAs, per year. ANDAs are the primary workload driver of the program. Over the first 4 years of GDUFA I, we started at which we started in 2012, and the receipts averaged about 1,000 per year. To address the increased workload, FDA hired additional staff, including process managers, and spent about $430 million in the final year of GDUFA I in order to maintain FDA's current productivity and implement negotiated improvements. Industry and FDA agreed that user fees would be about $493 million annually, adjusted each year for inflation. So on September 30th, 2022, the President signed a bill authorizing GDUFA III through September 30th, 2027. For the current GDUFA III cycle, the goal is to bring about new enhancements to the program that are designed to maximize the efficiency and utility of each assessment cycle, with the intent to reduce the number of assessment cycles for these ANDAs. Now, GDUFA II is where we saw the details of the assessment timeline come into effect. In this time, the goal was to review the application in 10 months, with the first 60 days giving the agency time to confirm that the drug companies have submitted a complete application. Now, with GDUFA III implementation, there were negotiations made to the review process. Some examples included assessing and acting on 90% of standard original ANDAs within 10 months of the date of the submission. Another important change was how we handle correspondence from the firm. See, under GDUFA II framework, correspondence seeking regulatory or scientific advice after issuing a CR letter was considered a general correspondence. Now with GDUFA III, these type of correspondence can be submitted as a control correspondence. A control correspondence, excuse me, a control correspondence is a communication submitted to FDA or on behalf of a generic drug manufacturer or related industry requesting information about a specific element of a generic drug development or a certain post-approval submission requirement. With GDUFA III, the submission of life cycle information request letters could lead to an extension of a go date. Now, some firms may have pushed back on that because they felt that this extension would not allow them to arrive at the expected date of their review. But actually, it helps the agency continue to review the application and without having the firm resubmit the application and starting the clock over. Now let's look at the scope of my work as a process manager. When an application has been sent to OPQ, the review is triaged to one of the 30 teams. Every team has 2 to 3 RBPMs who manage an average of 20 to 25 assessors at a time. Each team has an assessor for drug product, manufacturing, microbiology, and biopharmaceutics, and DMF, or drug substance file. Depending on the application, some of all of the disciplines are needed. A process manager, we must look at the type of drug submitted and assign a specific assessor that will review the application. If you look at the chart, you will see alignment team 1 and 2 at the top. Below, there are RBPMs that manage the assessors, senior pharmaceutical quality assessors, or we call SPQAs, and ATLs under each alignment team. As you go further down, you see the assessors for drug product and other disciplines below it. These are the assessors who process managers have to choose from when assigning into our tracking system called Panorama, which I'll discuss later. So after we have assigned a reviewer into Panorama, we must also manage the workload of the assessor as process managers. We do this via a couple of tools. One is the Excel sheet we have here. For example, here is a breakdown of the alignment team 19 and 20. In the chart, the assessors are also listed, but the title is by the office. So the drug product assessors who are part of the Office of Lifecycle Products are listed by the ATL. So before I officially assign an assessor into Panorama, I look at the current workload of the assessor. My goal is to make sure there aren't assessors who have too much work compared to others. Make sure that one assessor doesn't mostly have intense sterile applications or only original applications or amendments. By having this Excel sheet, I can adequately assess the application to assign a specific assessor, preventing potential burnout. The great part of the Excel is that once I add an additional assignment, the Excel updates the total applications of assessors, total application that assessor has. As I stated before, we have a few tools that we use to track the workload and manage the life cycle of the generic drug process. One application for managing the life cycle is Panorama. Another tool that we use is called Mercado. So FDA had a serious issue at hand to manage the enormous workload of its employees. Just the Center Evaluation Research, or CEDR, alone receives about 150 new NDAs and BLA applications, about 1,600 ANDAs and 400 new INDs. Each center at the FDA receives a few thousand documents to review and has to follow a strict timeline to review and comment. To manage the workflow and streamline review outcomes, FDA launched several updates to its informatics system. One of the most important of these is called Panorama. Panorama is used for the management of core functions such as reviewer assignments, tracking of review status and outcome, and internal team communications. This system allows tracking of a given document from the moment it arrives in CEDR until the review is completed and outcome is filed. Now I'll give you a firsthand view of Panorama. So here's a screenshot of the drug summary page of a drug application in Panorama. So once a project manager locates their application of interest, we will automatically be directed to this page in Panorama. As part of the GDUFA process, there are certain internal dates that we have to meet so that we can give the drug firms a response in time. The first is the quality mid-review date, or also known as QDD1. This is the date I must remind my assessors of so that they can meet the updates on where we are halfway through the 10-month review process. A second date is the QDD2, or quality due date. This is the last date the assessors have before they should complete their review so that the ATL can review. The ATL has until the owner due date, or ODD, to put the final stamp of approval on the application before it's handed off over to the Office of Generic Drugs, or OGD. From there, OGD will send a response to the drug firm by the official go date. The ODD date is very important, actually used as a measure of performance for process managers and assessors. So by not meeting this internal date, it's like not meeting the go date for us in OPQ. This project summary page that I'm showing also allows me to peek into the application at any time I want to see where my reviewers are currently in their process. I get to see if the application is at least reviewed by the primary assessor or the secondary assessor at any time. So another important part of Panorama is the application lifecycle tab. From this screen, I can see all the submissions from the firm that came in and any responses that have been sent from the agency as well. This is really important for process managers because when sending out multiple letters, we require drug firms to respond back via our electronic portal. If we do not see the application here, it's a good chance it was not submitted. We can also see if amendments came in where the drug companies may have changed their U.S. agent representative, possible changes to their 356H application, or any other important data about their application that they did not inform us via email. To track the applications, I use what Panorama calls a dashboard. With a dashboard, I can see all the applications assigned to me, the QDD date, the ODD date, the goal dates, and all together into the application. This allows me to see the most important dates about them all without having to go into each application individually. With the work request tab, I can get an alert in Panorama from someone as an alternative to them emailing me within the agency. If an assessor has finished their review and it is time for me to complete a quality check, I can be notified via work request. If I'm completing a supplement and an application, someone can assign me a simple task there as well, letting me know input is needed. And this allows the process of review to continue on an efficient way. Regulatory Business Process Manager notes section allows for me to have a small post-it note area in the project summary where I can write down important tasks about the application. Say, for instance, if I send an information request letter to the firm and it's due back in 20 days, I can leave a note here for anyone RBPM that is covering for me while I'm on leave and make sure that the process continues and the response is given efficiently to the applicant. Another tool we use for managing a workload we assign reviewers is called Mercado. This is a real-time automated reporting that enables project managers and leaders to allocate resources and understand performance relative to public and congressional commitments. It's sort of like a Google research application that allows to easily access data across multiple business domains to facilitate drug application reviews. Any application that is assigned to an assessor, it is tracked in Mercado. Earlier in the presentation, I mentioned that I use an Excel sheet to keep track of the workload I assign to assessors each time I am assigned an application. I added so that it's calculated into my assessor's workload as well. What if I'm assigning an application in Panorama, but I forget to assign it on my Excel sheet that I use to capture the information? That would not be a problem because Mercado is like a backup and will still capture this data. When keeping track of workload for assessors I manage, I also have the ability to know when goal dates are approaching for applications before assigning them to the assessor. So as a process manager, I don't just look at the intensity of the application when making a decision of which reviewer I assign the application to, but how soon the response is due back via the goal date. So I just want to end the presentation with the lessons I've learned as a process manager in OPQ that may be helpful for other process managers at your at your firm or drug firm. When hosting meetings, I try to collect names and positions of those from the drug firms and from the FDA. The best meetings are the ones with tangible solutions are received. This can be a disaster if you do not have the correct people in the meeting in attendance during the time of the meeting. Having an agenda and sticking to it is very important when leading, excuse me, having an agenda and sticking to it is very important as well. When leading meetings, do not be afraid to mention that you will table a topic for later if no solution is coming quick enough. In the end, I always ask the drug firm to send their minutes to the agency so you can compare and make sure that we're all on the same thought process as the agency and between the agency and the drug firm. If you are communicating with the U.S. agent for a company, make sure it is one listed in the 356H. One of the worst things to happen is sending an important email to a firm that never received it if the U.S. agent is incorrect. Also, for tracking purposes, make sure you require that all scientific information is submitted through the CEDAR ECD portal. If a process manager and the firm were making a decision via email, there is no permanent documentation of this once the process manager leaves the office or center, unless it was submitted through the portal. When sending emails that contain letters, always ask to confirm upon receipt. As a great reminder, put a calendar invite in our email Outlook that helps you remind when applications or emails or information letters or any communications are due back. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to my presentation today. We have a Q&A session after this if you have any further questions about the role of the RBPM or process manager in the review process under GDUFA. Thank you.